you and I met 5 years ago, 4 years ago?
In our 20s.
Yeah, when I was 16, I don't know about you, at the Pellicano, where I had gone on assignment. But it wasn't the first time I'd ever been to the Pellicano. When I was truly 18 or 19, and I'd been studying in Florence for about a year and a half, my mom and dad came over to visit, and we decided to go on a bit of a road trip. And this would have been totally, totally impossible any time now because, as everybody knows, Italy is booked from May 15th through kind of September 15th. You just can't stay anywhere remotely interesting. But back then, you could still kind of drive around and maybe rock up to a hotel and get a room. And my dad had heard about this amazing place called the Pellicano in Porto Ercole. And we drove down through Tuscany and popped in here and popped in there. And the day that we were going to the Pellicano, I think we rolled onto the peninsula when it was getting dark. And if any of you have been there, you'll know it can be kind of a difficult place to find. It's incredible when you get there, but it's down a bit of a road. And we were going and it was dark, and we were going and it was dark, and we pulled in, and then we walked in and it was absolutely gorgeous. And everything was kind of lit, the terraces were lit, and it spills down to the pool. And they didn't have any room, but they were like, let's have a walk around and let's have a look around. And ever since then, I had this sort of the mystique of the Pellicano in me. And you would have been like 14 at the time, famously rescuing lobsters from the barbecue and throwing them in the pool to try to save them.
That was a big success.
Yeah, but talk about how you literally grew up there.
In the summers, yeah.
Yeah.
Part of the furniture. And it was great because it was like growing up in a film in some way, you know. Kids weren't allowed, really.
Except for you.
Well, kind of. I had to kind of hide behind the rosemary bushes and look into this world, you know, and it was very enchanted, you know. And as a child, I think you look at everything and everything seems so fabulous, you know, and it was.
And it was, in fact,
and
also
I couldn't be part of it, you know, and it was really like, oh. And everyone was so stylish and beautiful and fabulously dressed, starting from my mother, I have to say, who would wear kind of capucci gowns for dinner and just show up like that. And so it was, you know, it was very formative to grow up in such a place that was so aesthetic.
Mm-hmm. Marie-Louise has curated the collection with matches for this Grand Tour project, which is a beautiful restored 1929, 1939 boat.
30-something, right?
Beautiful vintage boat that will be visiting the Pellicano, moored off the Pellicano, and then going down to La Posta Vecchia, which is La Dispoli, which is just what, west of Rome?
Yes, it's on the coast. It's about 40 minutes north of Rome. Never eat shredded west. Wheat. Oh.
And then to the Mezzatore, which is the newest member of the Pellicano group, which is on the island of Ischia. And that, I mean, it kind of perfectly encapsulates everything that your hotels stand for and everything that I think is people's kind of that ineffable Italian glamour thing, which is, you know, it can be as simple or as full-on beautiful, Giambattista Valli, Valentino, whatever you want it to be, but it's all about the execution. And it's all about quality done with love. We were talking about, like, what is the pith of why people love to go, like, why do they not just want to go to Italy on holiday because it's beautiful, but they want to go to Italy on holiday and kind of be that. It's definitely glamour, but the glamour can be kind of,
but it's
it can be sandals on your feet, yeah, and like a sea urchin pulled up by a fisherman and you're eating it in the wooden boat. But if it's done with grace and it's done with elegance and kind of there's the sea behind you and you know, it all comes together in that visual that we're now all so familiar with. That's where it comes from.
Yeah, I think Italy, people love it also because it's real.
Yeah.
So you do get, you know, when you get to Ischia, you arrive at the port and it's beautiful, but you don't, it's not all
Ischia is more real.
It's like rough. And you'll get big hairy stomachs and stuff, but it's cool because it's life. It's a mixture of, like, you know, the real thing. And I think that is one of the charming things of Italy. Is it's very strongly, obviously, aesthetic country, no? Where, like, proportions and colors and scale and all of that. I mean, Italians grew up with that sense of aesthetic. But then there's this like reality, you know, of this simpleness. And I think these two mixes are what make Italy such a appealing place. And kind of a time capsule. And the further south of Rome you go, the more time capsule kind of it is. I mean, if you go to Milan, it's a city that you're in Europe, no?
100%.
Much more than
Yep.
Rome, which is kind of fabulous, but it lives on its glory of
It's
the Roman Empire, which was a couple of years ago.
And its own schedule, and yeah, exactly. And then all the way down to Palermo, which is incredibly grand and kind of slightly still crumbling and falling apart, although it's having a massive moment now. But that idea of kind of authenticity and people wanting that more and more, and where they're going. You know, where do you send? I know that you put together a little guide as part of this amazing curation project. When people are at the Pellicano, obviously it's a world unto itself, but when they want to venture out, where are you sending them? Like, where would you?
Well, my favorite place is about half an hour away, so not the best choice for everyone, but they make these gnocchi that are to die for. Has anyone been to this place called Petronio? No, all right. How good is that? It's the best. And it's like plastic chairs, neon lights. Look, it's terrible.
But this is the thing.
It is that dish.
The food is
so
insane.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And I still dream about that. Only gnocchi. And the only thing I have when I go there is gnocchi. So I don't bother having the meat, anything else, just the gnocchi. And you can have them with burro salvia, tomato, or how do you say cinghiale? Wild boar.
Wild boar.
And so I just get 3 of those, and that's it.
You don't look like a person who sits down and eats 3 dishes of gnocchi with wild boar all the time. If you know somebody who can recommend great things, it's absolutely the difference between going to Rome and feeling like you've kind of gone halfway into the experience and going to Rome and seeing quite literally a whole other version of the city. And then you find that in so many different places. I was just last week at the Mezzatorre, the newest Pellicano hotel, and unfortunately then also had sort of 17 degrees and pouring weather, which Ischia is not perhaps the best place in the world to be when it's like that. But luckily the hotel, which has just reopened after Marie-Louise has had her way with it design-wise, all to the good, was really incredibly charming. And I took a car and I went around the island a little bit, and on the recommendations of a few friends, Italians, there's this place called Le Petrelle that is on the beach at Maronti, which is one of the beaches that Elena Ferrante, who wrote the Neapolitan Quartet, wrote about, if I'm not mistaken. And it's this kind of clapped-out shack right on the water, painted blue floors, blue and white tables. It's run by 2 sisters who grew up on the island, and they just do a few fish dishes, a few antipasti, and that's it. But it was so delicious and so real, and absolutely the kind of place that you get somebody who goes to the Pellicano. You get that kind of glamour. And when they go down to Ischia, to the Mezzatorre, you think, oh, are they going to want to stay in this incredibly lovely little world that the Mezzatorre is, that's been created, or are you going to send them out on the island to explore a little bit? Because Ischia is, shall we say, not Capri. It is a bit rough.
And thank God.
Yeah, well, exactly. It has, you know, if you want
Nothing
to do
against
Capri,
but
well, Capri is the thing. It is its thing.
Yeah,
and then Ischia is, first of all, 4 or 5 times as big. It has 6 different towns. Quite a different character on the island already between these towns, and so different from the other bits of the Gulf of Naples. But I think if you don't send somebody out onto Ischia to the restaurant that's trying to be Capri, send them to Le Petrelle, to the sisters who've been there, kind of. And I think, you know, part of the conversation of how to do style in Italy is it getting harder to find? Is it, you know, people know a lot now. We were talking about 10 years ago, we might have gone to Polignano a Mare in Puglia, that really famous long blue inlet that you will have probably seen 500 million photos of on social media, and how places have changed. And then how to create the same kind of authenticity and glamour and style, but with that realness in different places. Because, I mean, there's so many people there now, you know.
It's super
packed. And you've done it with your 3 hotels, but where else in the country do you find that?
It's very important to have a sense of curiosity. no?
Yeah.
And go and find things and go and explore things and go do things you don't know how to do. So if one is used to going to always a certain kind of place, get out of your comfort zone, and I think that's how you really find really cool stuff. All of my favorite places, I always get asked this question, what's your favorite hotel? Well, it's a little inn with no view, shared bathrooms, on the Pacific, on the PCH called Dejan's Inn. And it's about that reality.
Well, and it is Big Sur. I mean, it is quintessential that place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the ladies, again, are not like, they don't have this manual of like how to be really nice with your customer necessarily. It doesn't have a view, and across the street there's this legendary hotel which is phenomenal and incredible views and everything.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have a heart that beats. And I think we were saying that before, people need to find those places that have that heart that beats, and Italy has it.
Yeah,
And I
in
think,
spades.
Yes, it does. And I think luxury always more, and you know, you can find these things also, thank God, in luxury. I mean, look at matches. How many online, there's many online places,
But there's a point of view that is so complete.
And it's a real, besides it's an amazing company driven by amazing women who I'm your massive fans, but you know, that's what makes it different. It's that real passion and vision, I think.
If you had to pick 2 or 3 other places in Italy where you would want to, having had the Mezzatorre adventure, because Marie-Louise sort of didn't, her brother went to the Mezzatorre first. Can I tell this story?
Sure.
He went there and he called her and was like, you have to come see this place. And I had stayed there 3 or 4 years ago on assignment when it was not owned or managed by the Pellicano Hotels, and it was a quite different place. The site was incredibly charming, but the hotel needed somebody with taste to come in and do some things with it. And her brother got there first and called her and said, you have to come see this place. And I don't think you even really wanted to go.
Not at all.
You had no sort of, you know. And so when you got there, what was it?
I didn't want to do, we want to grow our little hotel group into like 5 or 6 really special places across Italy. And we've been looking for a place for 10 years. We've seen like 30 or 40 hotels, but we just need to find the right one.
Yeah.
That makes our heart beat, you know, and gets us excited about kind of repositioning or just giving it a second life. And my brother called me and said, you know, you have to see this place in Ischia. I said, I don't want to do another seasonal hotel. It's complicated enough. Yeah. So he let me be for a while, and then he called me back and he said, you really have to go see that hotel in Ischia. Anyway, he said, last chance, 23rd of December, 2 years ago. And you can imagine, on the 23rd of December, we're all exhausted, no? And you have to do presents, and the last thing you want to go is
the boat ride's a little rough.
Boat ride with waves like this, bloody freezing, and go see a hotel that's all shut.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like The Shining. Anyway, we get there, and that's what we did. So
I have vision.
It was amazing. It spoke to us, you know, and it really just said, polish us up, because that's what it needed, you know, just to blow off the dust a bit and give it a second life. And so he obviously will hold this against me forever, my brother, about the fact that I didn't want to see it. But we did see it and got it. And he's very good. He finds very specific and beautiful places. So.
And where would you guys, in an ideal world, if you knew the little jewel that was ready to be polished up, were there or had it sent?
There's a few jewels that I've got my eyes on.
Really?
But I cannot reveal.
That's fine.
But mountains, somewhere in the mountains would be nice.
Okay. Interesting.
And then something in the city. I think in the DNA is just, you know, finding those little special spots.
And making the magic. Yeah. Yeah, because the Monte Argentario Peninsula is an extraordinary,
it's amazing.
I mean, 3,000 years back of amazing history. Quite
And
cool.
It's still kind of wild, no? I mean, the Tuscan coast is not as known as like Chianti or the other parts of Tuscany that are super well known. So I mean, people know more or less the Pellicano, but it's not. I mean, you have to be kind of in Rome or, you know about that region. It's not automatic that people go to the Tuscan coast.
And that probably accounts in part for why the Pellicano also is its own. You've worked hard to cultivate it being its own little world, because it is.
I definitely want to protect those little worlds, you know, and keep a dialogue with the past, which they were, because I think walls do talk, and I think there's so much energy in hotels because so many lives have gone in and out. And those things are in the air, not to sound cheesy or new agey, but I do really believe this, and maintain that past in some manner through, you know, visuals and aesthetics and stories and narratives, and then though also bring in the today's world in it, or else it would feel like, oh, it was great in the 60s. But
yeah, it can't be too much of a time capsule. It has to live.
It has to be dynamic.
Be Italian in 2019, as well as you know, where the magic came from. The story of the Pellicano, for instance, is storied, is known.
Yeah.
And that's been brought really vibrantly and successfully into the 21st century.
Yeah, so just have a dialogue between the past and the future, more or less.
Did anybody have any questions?
How does your American side come into sort of this whole very Italian picture?
I've never even had this conversation.
Oh my Lord.
Oh my God.
My American side?
Well, it's very important.
It is very important, but my mom always had this thing of like, she always said she was French, Irish, really. So she
Well, let's say French-Irish then. Meaning
I think
you have
that
an
maybe
background.
studying abroad was very influential, and studying at an American university was really super influential, because I went to architecture school at Rhode Island School of Design, and they taught architecture as a fine art, as if it was painting, and they taught how to question everything and how to think. And I think then that's what I applied when I started working in the hotels, was like, it's not only a place of a good night's sleep, it's more, like there's so much more you can do with hotels, and hence I think also the fact that we're doing this thing together with matches. I mean, it's not, a lot of people are in some way nearly surprised, but then it's, to me, it's so normal.
Very, very interested to hear you say that how you create the heartbeat. It sounds from what you're saying like it's an experience. Everything is experiential. It's not just going to a hotel. How do you set about a heartbeat, finding that heartbeat in a hotel that's obviously been, like the one in Ischia, that's dormant? How do you re-energize it?
I think you do need to like be true to its nature a bit, no? And it was just about looking at all the archival pictures, and also a bit having a story, a narrative in my mind, and which is not completely invented. I mean, it's a real kind of narrative. And it was, in Ischia, it was very personal in the fact that I just put in the interior design, it was just things I really liked. As simple as that. And, you know, you've seen it. I mean, it's not like a lot of these hotels, I think, interior designers go in and there's a formula, no? Which is great. And they're perfect. Ischia, Pellicano, and Posecchio are not perfect. There's always
they're perfectly imperfect, we've said.
They're human.
Kind of,
I mean, they're homes, decorated as you would decorate your home.
It's crooked sometimes. Yeah. There's kind of, the dining room is really, really done, and then there are other bits of it that have been kind of left. You know?
Also because we did have 4 months to redo it, which was really, really tight. But it is, I think, but that's life. I mean, there's always a little bit of dissonance, no? It's never. And I think those little elements give also who spends their time there, makes you feel like you're at a home. So the heartbeat is there in those things that are not perfect.
Do you feel like some of the heartbeat is the storytelling? Like, so this is what Ischia is about. This is kind of
I think it's a combination of things. It's like a recipe, now that you have the right tomatoes. It has to be all about quality to start with. Mm-hmm. So, you know, really good salt, really great tomatoes, really good, and then it's how you mix them together. And I think, you know, all of our places have, I mean, Ischia had amazing bones. It's not that we made a miracle. I mean, it was amazing to start with, but we just put a lot of TLC. The staff are amazing. Mm-hmm. They really love what they do. So, I mean, that makes a big difference when you brought a cafe with intention and with love and with a smile, and that they really genuinely care if you like the cappuccino they made that morning. And I think it's all those little millions of little gestures and actions that create that. I tend to sometimes compare hotels to people, no? If they're boring, you won't engage. And the more layers I think a person have, to me, but everyone else obviously, the more I'm interested in that person. And I think spaces, music, all of it is about the depth it goes into, and I think hotels too, without.
And perhaps a little mystery.
And a lot of mystery.
Talk to us about how you've created your pieces, because I think we all have that dream of turning up on holiday, particularly somewhere like Pellicano looking fabulous. So I imagine that was a little part of that.
Well, I really like to dress up on holiday. So I show up at the Pellicano like that at night. And it plays part of the fantasy of these worlds, not that I think hotels are. So it's a bit of a mix, as you've seen. I mean, there's fancy gowns and shorts and like a white t-shirt and heels, and there's a bit of everything, because I really based it a lot on my kind of day there, which I can't be on holiday because I'm not, but I can't even look like if I'm working all day long in a suit. So I have to find that kind of balance of not annoying people looking like I'm working. So that was kind of the choice. There's two blazers, which I love blazers. I think they look great. And I also remember as a kid always these men, super chic men, who always had these suits. So I really like actually having a blazer even on holiday. The J.J. Martin stuff is just so easy
and vibrant and
fun, and it's just great. Then I have a little sequence jet for a party. I can't remember all of it, but it's
some good denim.
Some good denim.
Like sailor pants, yep, wide leg pants.
These remind me of my mom's. The shirts with the bathing suit underneath, like the Jill Sander. So it's a bit of a, maybe it's a more structured holiday edit. It's not only flowy dresses.
Do you have muses?
Oh, muses. No, my mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's my muse, and she was Slim Aaron's muse too. So I grew up with him photographing her constantly, and she always looked fabulous, completely random, with orange leotards and a pink bodysuit in front of a window in Spoleto, and she looked absolutely stunning. So yeah, she's definitely my muse.
That's it? Yep. Excellent.
Thank you.
For coming. Thank you.
Grazie.
Yeah, brava, too.